There are tactile elements in terms of weighted blankets, fidget toys. There we have special headsets with binaural beats therapy. This is another therapy that really calms your brain down very fast. We also use complete sensory-proof headphones, so people just want to sit in silence. So yes, various elements tackling all your senses. And as I said, the first thing that everybody notices when they enter, they do a big like.
Welcome to Season 2 of ADH Difference. I'm your host, Julie Legg, ADHD advocate, author of The Missing Piece, a woman's guide to understanding, diagnosing and living with ADHD, and an unapologetic doer of many things. This season, we're turning up the volume with a global lineup of brilliant guests, bringing their lived experiences, insights, research, strategies and resources. And of course, along with a healthy dose of humour and humility. Whether you're neurodivergent yourself or just curious, there's something here for every curious brain. Let's dive in. Today, I'm joined by Nika Brunet Milunovic, a social worker, founder of Calm Nest Collective, and someone who's reimagining what it looks like to design events, workplaces, and public spaces with real human nervous systems in mind. After years in corporate roles and the events industry, running everything from international festivals to sustainability programs, Nika realised there was a gap between how spaces are designed and how people actually feel inside them. That insight led her to create Calm Nest Collective, where she helps organisations build sensory-friendly, inclusive environments, from quiet rooms at conferences to calm corners in workspaces. In this conversation, we're exploring why environments matter so much for ADHD and neurodivergent brains, and how small, thoughtful changes can make a big difference to how safe, focused, and regulated we feel. Welcome to the show, Nika. Thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Yay, and all the way from Tanzania to New Zealand. Wonderful. You've spent years in corporate roles and the events world, running everything from international festivals to sustainability programs before realizing something essential was missing. And can you take us back to that moment of realization? What were you seeing and feeling that the system wasn't working for people's well-being?
Yeah, a little bit of a background. I'm actually a social worker by profession. So I guess I always had this just this notion again for people and just, being really passionate about well-being and mental health. I started noticing things. So when I was working in the event industry for over 10 years already, events industry is a ruthless industry. We are first of all, we are mostly freelancers, which gives it a little bit of a background why everything is also a little bit more stressed because everybody's getting really head over feet to get the job done, just to be in the industry and to be famous in the industry in a way that you're a responsible, reliable person. And then, 10 years into the industry, COVID hit. And I started noticing really severe patterns of depression, burnout, mental health issues in general within my colleagues, but also within my family. I think our industry was one of the ones that was really impacted the most because during one night, I remember it vividly, we stayed without our jobs, without the possibility to work. There was no safety net, there was no umbrella. People really just had to find something else to work on. And this lasted for a decent 2 years, at least in where I was working at the moment in Europe. So it was hard. And I think that everything else that we were working so hard all these years to somehow mitigate with being jolly and being fun and being amongst friends. And it is a joyful industry as well. It's not everything is bad. You can have a lot of fun, of course. So we were somehow mitigating this. Everything just went to the surface. And I said, well, I think I have a personal experience as well, which I can share. And basically one of my teammates collapsed behind the stage because of the burnout. So he had an episode. And I just said, I think it's time we start working on this industry and within the industry differently. And I'm a strong believer in that. So this is my path now. That's what I'm trying to do.
And you've seen it firsthand and decided that's it, something's got to be done about that. How
Yeah.
did your own experiences with mental health and neurodiversity shape the way you started noticing environments differently?
Well, I'm neurodivergent myself, late diagnosed, even though I think that since very early childhood, I just felt I was different. And this somehow, yeah, I mean, if you're a little bit in tune with your emotions and with your presence on this planet, you quickly understand you're a little bit different. So, of course, when you grow up, masking becomes a great thing to do just in order to fit better into the environment. But the changes and the differences were there and still are. The only difference is that now I'm aware of them in a way that I actually use them to my own good and to good of the others. And just to be very transparent, events industry and all creative industries are full of neurodivergent people because we're just great at what we do. And we are amazing when we are doing things good. Yeah, this is just a fact.
Absolutely. And all the wonderful things that come along with running events and festivals and in the creative industry, as you said, it's fast paced. No day is ever the same. There are deadlines, which we thrive in. We need to problem solve, you know, on a dime. We do it all day long, coming up with ingenious ideas. I can see how it's rife and why we do so well. Absolutely. Now, the Calm Nest Collective is such a beautiful name and a really wonderful concept, too. What led you to create a consultancy and a design studio focused specifically on sensory friendly and inclusive spaces?
Yeah, Calmness Collective was actually born last year in December. Not last year, actually 2 years now. It's 2024. Yeah, my gosh, time flies. Um, from the same need, actually. I started, I mean, throughout the years, there was a lot of discussion how, if somebody is under severe stress or somebody just needs a moment to breathe, there's just simply nowhere to go. And by speaking with people, interviewing people, chatting with friends, with my colleagues, I figured something is missing. And we're in 21st century, and it breaks my heart that people within the corporate office, if they want to catch a breather, they either has to be smokers just to go outside to be able, like, this is allowed. You can go outside if you're a smoker, or you go to the toilet and just catch a breather there. I mean, we should do a little bit better than that, I guess, in the 21st century. So I thought, why don't we, I mean, sensory rooms as such are not a new thing. So this was invented in the 70s in the Netherlands, and they were firstly designed for children with autism. This is the background of the sensory space in general. But what we did is we tailored them to the wider population. And even though I always speak about neurodivergent people and how this is made for them, let's put it like this, they work for everybody. And this is proven with our pilot projects. This is just something that's beneficial for everybody, and everybody uses this. And I think that the sensory room itself, the idea is that you actually are able to calm your senses down in a very short amount of time and just reset your nervous system just to catch a breather. That's the story behind it. And it really, really works.
That's amazing. And so for listeners who might not have encountered this term before, what does this sensory friendly room or space actually mean in practice? What kind of elements are within this room?
So the elements are they are basically, the spaces are usually dark. So we use a lot of like shading the light, special light as well. So we tactile all of our senses. So there are visual elements, tactile elements, auditory, olfactory, and proprioceptive. So body awareness, smell, sound, touch, and sight. How we do this is with various elements. I also use a lot of biophilic design, which means we use natural plants inside because nature is a great healer and the elements are there as well. But other than that, as I said, the room is dark, darker at least, as much as we can make it dark if there are windows inside. There are tactile elements in terms of weighted blankets, fidget toys. There we have special headsets with binaural beats therapy. This is another therapy that really calms your brain down very fast. We also use complete sensory-proof headphones, so people just want to sit in silence. So yes, various elements tackling all your senses. And as I said, the first thing that everybody notices when they enter, they do a big like, so this is already a first sign, okay, this is working, because you actually always do a big exhale. At least this is our experience.
And what sort of businesses would sort of take this approach, and or situations or events would take this approach and have this sensory space?
To be honest, I started in events just for the simple reason because this was my home and still is, because I'm still working in events. But really, it really works for everything and everybody. And we started promoting it really within the events, so conferences, congresses. I mean, everything that you can imagine that has more than 30 people in the same place. So it can be a summit, it can be a festival, it can be a club show, music club show. And then, of course, offices of all kinds. So every corporate building should have it, or at least one, not necessarily mine, but still some kind of space like this. And of course, public spaces as well. Schools, for example, this is a great, or universities are definitely a place that benefit significantly from these kind of spaces.
Wow, that sounds ideal. Absolutely. Especially when the chaos of life, and whether it be at a festival or event or in the workplace, when, especially for us neurodivergent folk, when things are too much, just to be able to go to the space and feel safe and calm down. And as you said, that's not going to the bathroom and not going outside
Yeah.
for a cigarette. So, what a healthy way to re energize and just calm things down. Many ADHDers can feel overwhelmed and exhausted or dysregulated in workplaces,
Mm.
events, and public spaces, almost without knowing why. So, how do you think environments impact the nervous system, attention, and I guess emotional regulation as well?
Well, I think the basic idea of design in general is that it should work for everybody. But we know very well we are not all the same. And already this kind of programming, let's put it like this, or however, I don't want to be judgmental or anything, but still, I think this starts already in school, because you put 20, 25, 30 children in one same classroom and just expect everybody will behave the same, regulate the same, have the same responses to the sensory input as well. It doesn't work like this. So some people use bright lights, some people use dimmed lights, some people do better in the morning, some people do better in the afternoon, some people like loud music, some people work in silence. So it's impossible to do it. And I think one of the reasons why schools are really so impacted by this, and we say children don't behave well. Well, I don't think so. I think we're just not being able to actually support them in a way that they would behave okay, or that they would feel supported in a system, which is something that we are not doing. For example, airports are such a great way to amplify the impact. Even if you're neurotypical, airport is a super stressful environment. I don't know a single person who would say, oh, I love going to the airport, and I personally love flying, but I hate airports. So, and if you imagine parents with a neurodivergent children, or even neurodivergent parents, or just somebody who has some kind of sensory processing difficulty, whatever that might be, an airport is a super stressful environment. This is loud, it is crowded, it is bright lights everywhere. There is no place to go. You can't sit anywhere in a dimmed light. Everything is super lighted. You're running on schedule. Everything is, it's pretty much as close as crazy as possible. Events are similar in a way. And this is why I think that these kind of spaces really work the best in this kind of environment, because I think that people are just not aware how beneficial this is on a larger scale. Just to offer a space where you can just go inside, sit there for 5, 10, 15 minutes, whatever, and just do nothing if possible. It really, really, the return on investment and just the benefits are over the top.
Mm. And why do you think that these sensory needs are so misunderstood or underestimated?
Because I think that we are quite late with opening discussion about how everybody feels. I think that, well, you probably know that we are now reaching about 25% of a worldwide population being neurodivergent, which is something that has rapidly risen in the past few years. Well, it is not that we are suddenly all neurodivergent. No, we're just not being diagnosed. So this is one gap. The other thing is that we, particularly in modern environment, and then the older the person gets, the more corporate ladder or any work ladder you climb, the less you want to speak about your personal problems. It's not even a problem. It's basically situation, or however you want to call it, difference. I think that we were not very, and then I think it's also this geographical thing. For example, I'm from the Balkans, and Eastern Europe in general, or just Europe in general. Scandinavia, for example, is also a great example. We are not, I'm not going to say we're cold people, but we really stick for ourselves. We are more private, more, we are very jolly when it comes to partying, yes, but speaking about your own personal problems, not very much. So we more, this stays, it's not even within the family, because I don't remember speaking about my parents about this either. So long story short, I think that throughout the years, perception has changed, spaces has changed in a way that there is now an option. Social media is one of the things where you can more or less say how you feel. If you will be judged or not, this is another thing. But still, I think the rise of the social media gave it a little bit of a space that you can share your stories and also find your own people. Because before, if you were feeling different, you had a feeling you're on your own and nobody is feeling the same that you do. And nobody is having this kind of thoughts or is operating in a way that you are. And you felt completely lost and completely, yeah, like something is definitely and terribly wrong with you. But with the rise of social media, I think that people finally have a chance now to find their own people in a way. Like, okay, look, oh, she's struggling with reading as well. Oh, she can't sit still for 5 minutes as well. So just to find people you can actually relate to. I mean, social media has ups and downs and pluses and minuses, absolutely, and definitely not all is bread and butter there. But I think this changes in the last 20 to 30 years. There were some changes, maybe some of them were very subtle, but still changes in a way that people are being able to express now their own differences, difficulties even, struggles, but also wins. So I think it's, I think this is the biggest change that happened and the reason why suddenly we are talking about this more and we are trying to change the world in a way to make it work for everybody.
No, that's great. And I imagine in some of these sensory rooms too, again, whether it's at a conference or a workplace, going there and knowing that you are amongst like-minded others too, and you need not over-explain yourself while you're there. You're there and you just do what you need to do to calm down and regulate. It
Mhm.
must be a nice feeling knowing that you're surrounded by others that are doing the same for similar reasons as well.
I think it's just that feeling of being welcomed and
Mm.
supported if needed. So I think that just this feeling that you can do whatever you feel like, because we've had various experiences, because our on an event, our sensory spaces are staffed. So we always use at least 2 trained mental health first aiders on site. And you wouldn't believe the reaction. So, for example, some people cry, some people get very emotional, and the reason for that is it's scientifically there, and just it's a very simple reason. Just your sensory overload was so high that once you get into the environment where this is deprived, so the body is deprived of sensory input, you just really distress in such short amount of time. The body and the mind reacts differently for every person. So that's the whole reason behind it. But it is impactful. And yeah, some people react, I mean, people react differently to it.
There are so many PhD folk within the community. It's incredible. So it's not about doing bad at school. It's about being passionate about, and the desire to learn and drive and research. Tell me more about your PhDs. Thorough.
Yeah, this is already my second one. So in the first one, I was exploring mental health within the events industry, within the events professionals. And my focus were not as musicians focused, but more on the production folks, people like myself. So people who work behind the scenes endlessly and tirelessly, but without or very little recognition, and people just don't see them on stage. We all see the musician playing, right? So the artist is the focus and not necessarily the people working in production. So this was my first research. And what came out of it was, one of the things that actually came out of it is, first of all, that mental health and support offered, at least at the time when I was doing the research, was very little to none. And COVID actually amplified that in just everything went through the roof. And second thing came out is that, what I've mentioned before, is that creative industries in general are full of neurodivergent people. And what I do want to now research more is the impact, the consequences, but also the pluses and everything else around it. So I think that like you've put it very right when you've said it's all about passion. It's not even being good at school. But I think there is a big thing or a lot of things that still need to be researched. There is not a lot of research done in this field. But I think the results are really, or what comes out of it, are really impactful and can really make an impact to a wider population.
You create, with your design background too, these amazing spaces for corporates and events and festivals. What are some small changes you've seen make a surprisingly big difference for neurodivergent people?
I think, for example, if we speak, there are some simple rules that I would definitely advise to everybody to tend to, no matter whether you're running an event, a company, office, production space, whatever. Talk to your people. Ask them what is that they need. Is there anything that you can do to help them work better, feel better? As I said, some people do better with headphones when they work, even if this is a crowded office, or particularly when it is a crowded office. I was one of those people. And this is not because I don't like my colleagues, and it's not because I don't like my boss, or because I don't want to talk to anybody. I'm not locking myself out. It's just I need to focus, and I can't do it if it is loud. So, and as I said, in 25 years ago, when I started working, my boss had the same question. What is wrong with you? Why are you having headphones on your head all the time? People want to talk to you and they feel like they can't approach you. And then I explained, I said, look, you don't need to be judgmental, and I don't like the tone, but still, just for you to understand, I just simply operate better. It's loud, it's crowded, energies bother me. And yeah, sometimes I do put my headphones on because I just want to have 30 minutes of silence and just want to focus on something without people bothering me all the time. Like, hi, how are you? La, la, la. So yeah, and I think that by asking questions, it is unbelievable how much you can achieve. And then there are all these small differences within, for example, a corporate design of the office. Just design or keep differences in mind when you're renovating your office. Do install plants. Plants are a great and such soothing element of the design with amazing benefits. Everything that we need is there. So the larger the plants, the better, and the more the plants of the office, the better. And then, of course, also design with the mind, and this goes also for events, design with the mind that there are differences within people. Everything will not work for everybody. Let the people bring their own things from home. If they want to have, I don't know, teddy bear on the desk because they feel better, yeah, just let them. We are not sterile. So I think that these are just these small things that, and of course there are many courses already online and books written on this, how you can actually make your environment work better for everybody. It doesn't cost a lot of money. You just need to have this in mind from start. That's all that it takes.
That's fabulous. So asking the questions of your people, what they need, and it's not about doing it perfectly, but doing things a bit more thoughtfully. I love that. So thank you for explaining it. It seems very achievable.
And also asking for help. There are people in companies like us who are quite good at what we do. Just ask for help. It doesn't cost much. It sometimes, usually doesn't cost anything because it's just an advice.
Yeah.
And this is the really, really great way to start making an impact.
Oh, that's amazing. And you're currently pursuing a PhD on mental health and neurodiversity in the events industry. You're hosting a podcast and you're mentoring founders and students. So there's a lot going on for you. What's feeling most exciting or meaningful right now for you and your work?
I think just this ability to hold the space for people to share who they are, what they're doing, and just if I can help, of course, in any way, this is extremely meaningful. But I think, for example, podcast is a great way, but also mentoring. I ended up doing mentoring by coincidence, and I just figured I'm really good at it, and the feedback shows it as well. A podcast was another thing. This is a fresh thing. It's some kind of a Calmness Collective baby because there were a lot of people. I do speak a lot of on conferences, on panels. So yeah, I did a lot of public speaking in the past as well in terms of sustainability in events industry. And people just said, but you're so comfortable with speaking. Why don't you just have a podcast or just record something? And I was like, yeah, why don't I? So the whole idea of the podcast really came as a calmness baby. And the idea is really for people to just share their stories. And for the same reason that I mentioned before, it's unbelievable how many people relate to people's stories.
Wow, absolutely. Nika, for someone listening who feels constantly overstimulated and exhausted by their environment, or just feels like the world's just a little bit too loud, what would you most want them to know?
First of all, that they are not alone. There are many of us who share this story. And second of all, there are small but impactful ways to mitigate this. You just need to find your own and don't be afraid to challenge, but also try all the possible options you can think of and find your own one because something that works for me might not necessarily work for you or for anybody else. And it's just sometimes it's a hit and miss, but just experiment because eventually you will find your own way how to do it that it works for you.
Absolutely. Yes, strategies aren't necessarily a one size fits all, are they? We do need to
No.
tailor them to our natural rhythms and what works for us
Mhm.
and our strengths. And that's such lovely words. Thank you so much, Nika. In the show notes, I'll be putting links to your consultancy so people can find you and read more about you and reach out to you. I'd just like to
Thank
say thank you so, so much for your time this morning. And I wish you all the very, very best with your PhD. I think that's absolutely glorious.
Thank you so much for having me. I think it was such a lovely conversation, and I can't imagine it. Time flew so much. Thank you. It's such an important podcast as well. Thank you.